Today we're going to be looking at page Windows 32, the Opening the Documents folder. The Documents folder is the most common place to store your files that you create or that you receive from others. From the Documents folder, you can examine your files, organize them into subfolders, and perform other common file management tasks such as renaming, copying, moving, or deleting a folder or file. And so we're going to be taking a look at this Documents folder, or as it's known on your computer, the My Documents. The best way to do this, and if you follow the steps through here, this is what we're going to be looking at. On step 1 on page Windows 32, it tells us that we want to click the Start button. And on the Start button, notice that we bring up our Start menu. If we then go to the My Computer the My Documents, or just the Documents on there, you pull up your My Documents or the Documents window. On there, and notice that these are all my files, and of course I have quite a few files. You will probably not have so many on there, especially since this is the beginning of the trimester and you're just getting started in with your school. Once we do that, it tells us that we want to click on the Different Views button on there. And of course, this is a little bit different on yours, so just kind of watch what's on the screen here, that way so we can take a look. The different views that we have here is that, of course, we can have extra large icons where it makes everything look really big, or we can have larger icons, or we can have different medium icons, or smaller icons, or we can even just list them out. We can provide details about it, and so on. So there's a lot of different options that are there. On there. So what we're going to do is we're just going to leave this right here, and the thing that we're ultimately wanting to do is go on to the next step on there, step 4, and that is we want to find our to-do list file, and that was what we did on our last video. So we're just going to go ahead and we take a look here, and there it is, to-do list, and we're going to click that, and if you notice that down here it tells us some information about it. It tells us that, of course, the file name's to-do list. It's a rich text format or an RTF file. It tells us when we last modified it, and also tells us how big it is and when it was created on there. So we're going to be taking a look at this. There's a few other little things to take a look. If you look on the bottom of page Windows 32, there's the components of the Documents window. Well, first of all, you have these back buttons and forward buttons, and that's very similar to web pages. You can go back a screen or forward a screen. If I would go into this class, that I can just click back and I end up back in my documents on there. Same thing with forward. I can also click on forward and go back into the folder I was just at. There is an address bar, much like a website. You know, your computer has addresses for these things, and very much like we were talking about with file hierarchies, this tells us ultimately where these files are stored. There's also a few other little things that's on there. There's a search document, so you can actually be looking up in your documents and try to see if you can find a certain file. There is a toolbar, and these toolbars allows you to help organize, open, share, email, and so forth on there as well. And then, of course, down here at the bottom, this is the Details pane down here at the bottom. And that is going to tell us just a little bit about the files that are on there. So let's go ahead and change up, flip your page over to page 34, and this is where we're going to be copying files. So let's assume that right now we have this to-do list in our Documents folder. And we're going to move this to-do list, and we're going to move it out to our desktop on there. So there's a couple different tasks that we're going to do on here. And now whenever we're talking about copying files, we're talking about you're taking a copy of the original. You're taking the original file, and you're going to keep it in its same location. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take a copy of that file and you're going to move it to a different location. This is a way of really kind of doing a backup, which a backup is ultimately just a copy of the files that are stored in another location. Now typically if you would do a backup, you would want to put it on something else, another hard drive, a flash drive, something else on there, or onto a server. So we're going to take a look at a few of the directions that's on here. Now, of course, this tells us attach your USB flash drive to your computer or to a cable connected to your computer on there. We're not going to worry about that. We're just going to move this to our desktop on there. So what we're going to do is that with this to-do list still selected from our last page, we're going to right-click on this. And this brings up the shortcut menu where we notice that we have several different options. on there. Of course, mine will have a few other options than what yours does on there. But it tells us that once we right-click on that, we're going to click on, or we're going to point to the Send To. Now, the Send To is a very great tool. It allows us to, it gives us a list of available drives and locations where we can copy our folder. And whenever we click on this, it's actually going to copy it for us. It's going to keep the original, and then it's going to move the copy on there. Now, of course, another little kind of a quick tip as well, if you're wanting to actually select multiple files and everything on there, or it tells us if you hold down the Shift while you click a Send To option, Windows moves the file to that disk. It does not make another copy. So if you're wanting to move those files or multiple files on that, if you press the Shift and then click on Send To, that's just going to move it, and it's not going to make a copy on there. But if I send this, and if I go to Send To Desktop, notice that there's a copy of this on there. Of course, this is a shortcut, but it's going to move a copy of that file there, in addition to keeping the original here. So let's just assume that I'm going to move this somewhere else besides the desktop, and let's just say that I'm going to move this to this 218 files right here. And if I move that, notice the original stays there. But if I would go to the 218 files on there, which we'll open that up here real quick, and if I go to this 218 files, notice there is the to-do list. So that has just made a copy of that. And of course, like I said, this is excellent for making copies and moving things to just about anywhere on there, to your desktop, to your documents, if you want to use it as an email, or to just have different drives. We're going to take a look on page Windows 36, and that's where we're going to stop off at during this video here on there, and we'll pick back up with the remaining part of the chapter. But whenever we open, edit, and print files, of course, sometimes you create new files, and you did, as you did in the previous part, which we've already looked at in the last video, it says often you want to change that file that you or someone else already created. After you open an existing file stored on your disk, you can edit it or make changes to it. For an example, you may want to edit, add, or delete text, or change the formatting, which really is how it looks or the appearance of the text. After you finish editing, you usually save the file with the same file name. However, you can also save it with a different file name on there. And a lot of times, eventually what you'll end up doing is that you will print this out. And so when we print it out, that's called making a hard copy on there, or a paper copy of the file. So whenever you hear the term hard copy, it means just make a excuse me, a copy of that file, but making it printable. You print it onto paper. So let's follow through the directions on page Windows 36 on there, and it tells us that step 1, we want to click on the Start button. Once we click on the Start button, we're going to go back to the My Documents on there. And once we're, we're going to go to the All Programs. So we're going to go to All Programs, and we're going to go to our Accessories. And these are alphabetically arranged on there. The first little bit are just non-folders and on mine, and so they're alphabetically arranged by the non-folders, and then the folders are alphabetically arranged. So we're going to go to WordPad here. So we're going to open up WordPad, and then the second one, it tells us that we are going to use the Open button, and this is a typical way of opening up files on there. So you would go to the file, or you may actually click on if there's an Office button up here, you want to click on that and click on Open. And what that's going to do is that's going to typically probably take us to the My Documents, or the document screen. And we're going to scroll down until we see the to-do list. Now there is another way of doing that. You can actually just go straight to the My Documents, and you can just double click on the to-do list. I went ahead and double clicked on this. That will open it up. The textbook actually says in step 3 you want to click on it one time and then click on the Open button in the dialog box. Then it tells us to click at the beginning of the last line. This is step 4 in the to-do list. Then type 2 additional lines shown in figure B12. So if we take a look at this, it tells us that we want to add in the words have host office hold my mail for 15 days and stop newspaper delivery for 15 days. So there's a couple more items on our to-do list. We have now just edited this document. Once we have that, we're just going to go ahead and press the Save button on there. So we're going to click on this little button right here. You could go into the File button, click Save there, but this is a little shortcut button right here. If I click that, it doesn't look like it does anything, but it's actually saved that file on there. So this has now been saved, the changes have been made, and now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the print preview of this. So if I go back up to that File button, and if I point to print, notice there's a little arrow here, and that means that there's another little submenu that's there. I can actually click on the print preview, and then there is a copy of what my document looks like. Now, before you print anything out in this class, you want to make sure that you do a print preview, because what it looks like on here is what it's going to look like when it prints out. And if I do ask you to print something, just to save paper, always do a print preview, because it's real easy to print and then say, oh, they don't look right, but then that wastes a piece of paper, that wastes ink on there as well. To actually print this document on here, and you're not going to print this on there, you would actually go ahead and click on Print, and notice it will bring up the Print dialog box. And typically you do want to print to the Lexmark Network printer, and you would just go ahead and click on Print. I'm not going to print this on there myself, I just want to show you the print dialog box again on there. When you click on print, this will disappear, and there you go, you're back to the main screen, or the main WordPad window. And then just to close this down, you just click on the close button there, and that takes us back to our Windows desktop on there as well. Of course, there is a difference. If you probably noticed that if I go back into this WordPad that's on there, there is a save and save as, and there is a little bit of a difference between those. If I would click on the save, that's not what I want to open up. If I do open this up, I'll open this up in Word here instead. If I would go to this Office button here, and if I click on save, it really doesn't do much. I mean, you don't see anything, it just goes ahead and saves the file at the same name, same location. However, if I would click on Save As, it's actually asking me where do I want to save this file as, and do I want to give it a different name. So there is really kind of comparing Save and Save As. Both of them will save the document. The Save feature will save the document underneath the same file name and the same location. The Save As will actually save the file on there, but you can choose a different file name or a different file location. So go ahead and be taking a look at that, practice the steps that you've seen on this video, and we will be picking back up with page Windows 38 during the next video.